Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Alyce, and my guild, Exiled Power, is number one two-day raiding guild on Arthas. We raid 6 hours a week, and we are 13 to 13 Mythic in HFC as of right now. We are all putting together our first impressions for each of the specs on the PTR for the Legion Pre-Patch. So, I'm going to be going over the Shadow Priest. So, first things is our core abilities have actually changed. These two down at the bottom are pretty new. So, we also no longer have Shadow Orbs, which is, awesome. So we will go through our spells first. We still have Dispel Magic, which dispels magic on the enemy target, removing one beneficial magic effect. Also still have Dispersion, however it does not reduce damage as much as it did in Warlords. So disperse into pure shadow energy for 6 seconds, reducing all damage you take by 60%, but you are unable to attack or cast spells, castable while stunned, feared, or silenced, and it does remove all snares and movement impairing effects. And you cannot be snared while you are in it. Also, this is new, Void Form does not drain insanity while dispersed, which is pretty cool, and that's a 2-minute cooldown. Don't really like the nerf to this. It wasn't really all that useful for things to immune, like in Fell Lord trying to go in, couldn't do it with dispersion at 90%. Now you definitely can't do it at 60. So, fade hasn't changed. Fade out, removing all your threat for 10 seconds, 30-second cooldown. Levitate levitates a party or raid member for 10 minutes, floating a few feet above the ground, granting slow fall and allowing travel over water. Mass Dispel is actually back to what it was pre-Warlords. Dispels magic in a 15-yard radius, removing all harmful magic from 5 friendly targets and 1 beneficial magic effect from 5 enemy targets, potent enough to remove magic that is normally undispellable. So that means we can once again dispel Pally's bubbles and Mage's ice blocks without having to have a glyph since they removed them. Mind Blast blasts the target's minds for 31,715 shadow damage, and it does generate 14 insanity. Let's see. Mind Control controls a mind up to 1 level above yours for 1 minute. Oh, I do have this one talented right now. So normally mind control still works where you mind control the person and then you just control them. However, I do have it talented where it actually makes them a pet, and we will go over that in a little bit. Mind Play, still a channel, assaults the target's mind with shadow energy, causing 26,000 shadow damage over 2.4 seconds and slowing their movement speed by 50%, generates 10 insanity over the duration. Mind Seer, still pretty much the same thing. Corrosive shadow energy radiates from the target, dealing 17,000 shadow damage over 4.1 seconds to all enemies within 10 yards of the target and generates 6 insanity over the duration per target hit. Which actually that might be okay. I mean, Mind Seer's always been kind of useless as far as damage goes, but if you have a huge wave of ads, it might be pretty good to get your insanity up faster. Mind Vision allows the caster to see through the target's eyes for 1 minute. Will not work if the target is in another instance or on another continent. Same thing. Only real use I think I've ever had for that is in PvP. When you're trying to look at other nodes that you want to capture. Let's see. Mindbender. Oh, this is also talented. It is normally Shadow Fiend. So let me actually move that for a second. Okay. Where'd Shadow Fiend go? There it is. Okay. Shadow Fiend summons a shadowy fiend to attack the target for 12 seconds. That hasn't really changed. Looks like he does not generate insanity, however, when he is baseline. Awesome. Okay. Power Word Shield. Shields an ally for 15 seconds, absorbing 48,000 damage and preventing damage from delayed spellcasting. Or from delaying spellcasting. 6-second cooldown. That hasn't really changed. Let's see. Psychic Scream lets out a Psychic Scream, causing 5 enemies within 8 yards to flee, disorienting them for 8 seconds. Damage may interrupt the effect. Still your AoE CC. Gotta be careful when you're in a dungeon so you don't pull other stuff. 1 minute cooldown. Purified Disease removes all disease effects from a friendly target. So that is an 8-second cooldown, so I guess you can help out your healers if there's lots of diseases going out. Resurrection, still have that. Brings a dead ally back to life with 35% health and mana. Cannot be cast in combat. Shackle Undead. Shackles the target enemy, undead enemy, for 50 seconds, preventing all actions and movement. Damage will cancel the effect, and you can only have 1 shackled. This hasn't really been useful since, I want to say Nax in Wrath of Lich King. Maybe in ICC a little bit when you're questing. It's pretty useless. Shadowmen, this one is our new heal. So wraps an ally in shadows which heal for 50,456, but at a price. The ally will take 2.5k damage every 1 second until they have taken 25,228 total damage from all sources or leave combat. This is interesting. It's basically our new flash heal. And for questing, it's pretty good for yourself because, I mean, as Shadow, you don't really have as much damage reduction as you did at one time because our Shadow form is actually gone. So you do not have the increased armor that you did in Warlords. So being able to heal and shield yourself is a big deal now. And once you kill the mob, then you are no longer taking damage from the Shadowmen, so you don't really have to worry about that too much. Shadow Word Death is a word of dark binding that inflicts 34,600 shadow damage to the target, only usable on enemies that have less than 20% health. Generates 10 insanity or 30 if the target dies. This is still our execute. It now, however, just has 2 charges with the 12-second recharge instead of how it was in Warlords, where if the target didn't die, you could cast it again within, I think it was still 12 seconds. So it's a little bit of a different change on how that works. Shadow Word Pain looks like it's pretty much the same thing. It is our main dot. It does 7,000 shadow damage instantly and then an additional 53,000 shadow damage over 14 seconds. And this one does generate 3 insanity. We already talked about that one. And let's see, Silence. Silence is the target, preventing them from casting spells for 5 seconds against non-players. Also interrupts spell casting and prevents any spell in that school from being cast for 3 seconds. Still pretty useful. It's 45-second cooldown, so it's not as good as, say, Rogue's Kick or some other things, but it does have its uses. Vampiric Embrace, our 3-minute cooldown to help heal. So fills you with the embrace of shadow energy for 15 seconds, causing you to heal a nearby ally for 40% of any single target damage you deal. all of our spells are shadow, so that doesn't really change. So yep, you use it in, you know, high damage phases just to help out your healers. It's not gonna, you know, save the raid or anything, but it'll help them out a little bit. So Vampiric Touch is our other dot. A touch of darkness that causes 91,000 shadow damage over 18 seconds and heals the priest for 50% of damage dealt. If Vampiric Touch is dispelled, the dispeller flees in horror for 3 seconds and it generates 4 insanity. So this is really good to have up while leveling. Also, this one does have a cast time too. So if the mob isn't going to live that long, probably better just putting Shadow Word Pain on it. But if it's a harder hitting mob, you do want to use VT on it to keep yourself up. Void Bolt is new. Sends a bolt of pure void energy at the enemy, causing 38,700 shadow damage and refreshing Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch to their original duration, and it does require Void Form. It does also generate 16 Insanity. Yeah, so basically when you're in Void Form, you don't have to refresh your dots, which is awesome. And I think that might be your highest insanity generation. Let me check. Yeah. So it has 16, Mind Blast is 14. So that one does regen more insanity. And Void Form is the new big thing. So you activate Void Form, increasing damage by 20%, reducing the cooldown on Mind Blast by 3 seconds, and granting an additional 1% haste every 1 second. Insanity will drain increasingly fast until it reaches 0 and Void Form ends. When Void Form ends, you gain lingering insanity, allowing haste bonus to persist for 1 minute, or until you next enter Void Form. Now I do have this talented. Normally it requires 100 insanity to activate, but because of the talent I have, it requires 70. And we'll go over that in a minute. So our mastery as Shadow increases the damage of your Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Void Bolt by a percentage. Because this is a copied character from Live, I do have a very high mastery on this set. And let's see, our other passive is Shadowy Apparitions. When your Shadow Word Pain damage over time critically strikes, you also create a shadowy version of yourself that floats toward the target and deals 5.7k shadow damage. Hasn't really changed. Okay, so let's go over the talents. So our level 15 talents have changed a little bit. Twist of Fate is still here. However, it was, I believe, either a 60 or 75 talent. Now it's 15. So after damaging a target below 35% health, you deal 20% increased damage and 20% increased healing for 10 seconds. Great on boss fights that have lots of adds. You can proc that throughout the fight to keep that 20% increased damage. It's also really good if the boss has a very long execute phase. This is the one that I'm picking for right now. Not a theory crafter, so I'm not really sure which one's the best out of these talents, but you know. Mind Flayt and Mind Blast deal 10% more damage and generate 20% more insanity. As of right now, I don't have a large amount of haste on my gear, so getting the insanity and keeping myself in void form longer is kind of what I'm trying to aim at. So I felt like this was probably the one I should go with. And the third talent in the 15 row is Shadow Word Void. Blast the target's mind for 21,000 shadow damage, and this one generates 25 insanity, but it is on a 30-second recharge. I believe this one also has 2 charges. Let's see. No, it has 3 charges. So, yeah, that one would generate insanity even faster. And I did play around with that one a little bit, but it felt a little off. So we'll go back to Fortress of the Mind. Okay, the level 30 talent is kind of a utility tier. Mania is you move 1% faster for every 5 insanity you have. Body and Soul is pretty much the same as it was before. Power Word Shield increases your target's movement speed by 40% for 3 seconds. Still pretty good. Masochism. When you cast Shadow Mend on yourself, its damage over time effect heals you instead. I'm not really sure how useful that one is, because once you drop combat, it's not gonna damage you anyway. I would stick with one of these two. I'm a little sad that Angelic Feather is no longer in Shadow, but it is what it is. So level 45 talents. Mind Bomb. Inflicts the target's mind with a mind bomb after 2 seconds, or if the target dies, it unleashes a psychic explosion, stunning all enemies within 8 yards of the target for 2 seconds. It's not saying it does any damage, so I didn't really go with it. It doesn't seem to be a DPS increase. It might have its uses in some kind of boss fight where you need to stun groups of ads or something. Yeah. Psychic Voice is just a cooldown reduction for Psychic Scream by 30 seconds. So instead of 1 minute, it would be a 30-second cooldown. Let's see here. Dominant Mind. This is the one I was talking about with the mind control. So you may also control your own character while mind control is active, and mind control now lasts 1 minute, but it may not be used against players. As far as I've been researching and stuff, and this seems to be the go-to talent for dungeons. There seems to be at least one mob in most dungeons that you can control and keep controlled for most of the dungeon, and it will do an insane amount of damage when you're in there. So that seems to be the best one to go with, at least while leveling and doing, heroics and whatever. So the level 60 talents. First one here is Void Lord. Lingering Insanity persists for 8 seconds after you enter Void form. So the Lingering Insanity is that haste buff that you get after you are dropped from Void form, based on how many stacks you got. So it just keeps it longer for you. Okay. Reaper of Souls. Shadow Word Death is now castable on targets below 35% health and always generates insanity as though it killed the target. This might be good on high movement fights, I would think. Just because if you're moving a lot, you want to have those instant cast spells, and this way you would at least have the 2 charges to cast. You just have to be careful, I think. However, if you take this and Twist of Fate, you might be able to, that might work together pretty well. And Void Ray. Each time your Mind Flay or Mind Sear deals damage, you gain 10% increased Mind Flay and Mind Sear damage for 4 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. This seems to be a redo of our class trinket from HFC, which I'm not too fond of, so I'm kind of avoiding this talent. It might be good numbers-wise, but we'll have to see. So 75 talents. Sanlayan, increase the damage of your vampiric touch by 20% and the healing of your vampiric embrace by 20%. So this one would probably be good on council style fights, because you'll have VT up on several mobs. That's the only place I can really see it being any good. However, That said, Auspicious Spirits seems even better for council style fights. So, your shadowy apparitions now deal 100% increased damage and generate 4 insanity. So if you have several several bosses that you are keeping your dots up on, and you have a high crit set, which is what you would want to do for Auspicious Spirits. Again, I believe you're going to have lots of spirits going out to those bosses. You are going to be generating a ton of insanity. You are going to be able to keep yourself in void form longer, which is kind of, I think, what you want to do. Shadowy Insight. Shadow Word Pain periodic damage has a 10% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on Mind Blast and cause your next Mind Blast to be instant. It's only a 7-second cooldown with my current gear, and really, right now I only have room for one Mind Flay in between my other spells, so I don't see this really being that useful unless it's a high movement fight. The level 90 talents. So we have Power Infusion, which is a 2-minute cooldown, infuses you with power for 20 seconds, increasing haste by 25% and increasing insanity generation by 25%. This is pretty good. I feel like the general consensus right now is between Power Infusion and Mindbender, depending on how the tuning goes. This will get you into void form faster, and then if you use it on cooldown, I'm not sure if it would be better to use it while in void form to stay in it longer, or to use it when out of void form to get back in faster. But still, that's probably how I would use that. Shadow Crash is kind of strange. It's basically the spell in there's that Wrath dungeon, I don't even remember the name of it. It has the faceless ones, and they use this spell right before the last boss. But anyway, it's a 30-second cooldown, hurls a bolt of slow-moving shadow energy at the destination, dealing 61,500 damage to all targets within 8 yards, and it generates 15 insanity. So let's take a look at this, because it actually looks pretty cool. Put that there for now. So, yep, that's it. And Mindbender, oh, it's on cooldown, so I can't switch. Mindbender summons a Mindbender to attack the target for 15 seconds. Generates 4 insanity each time the Mindbender attacks. This is the talent I have been using. It reduces the cooldown, or it used to reduce the cooldown. It's now the same cooldown as Shadow Fiend. However, it lasts 15 seconds instead of 12. I believe over the course of time that they are up, they actually do about the same amount of damage. However, Mindbender is generating 4 insanity each time it attacks. So that's the one I normally go with. Legacy of the Void. This is the one that it reduces the amount of insanity that you need to have to enter void form. So it reduces it from 100 down to 70, which means you can get into it faster. Mind Spike is back and replaces Mind Flay. Assail the target with shadowy spikes, dealing 3.9k Shadow Frost damage and leaving a spike embedded in their mind. Up to 10 spikes may be embedded this way. Mind Blast will detonate these spikes, each dealing 200% of their original damage to the main target and 100% to all nearby targets. Generates 6 insanity. So this is interesting. It's a change from how it is on live. It's no longer a filler. It's still kind of, it's still kind of a filler, but it's not, because it seems like you're going to want to, there's going to be a sweet spot for when you want to cast that Mind Blast. I doubt that you want to wait until that 10 seconds, because Mind Blast deals a lot of damage, and it generates a lot of insanity. So I would not wait to stack it up to 10. There's probably going to be a sweet spot in the middle, unless there is a specific reason in the fight that you want that burst damage to get rid of a wave of ads. However, that might, you know, something like on Manoroth Imps, it might help if you, you know, store up, you know, 7 or 8 Mind Spikes right before the Imps come out and then hit Mind Blast to nuke them. That might actually be a good use for that. And probably one of the coolest talents I have seen, Surrender to Madness. It's a 10-minute cooldown. All of your insanity generating abilities generate 200% more insanity, and you can cast while moving until you exit void form. Then you die horribly. So I had to look up what that means when you die horribly. And what it means is you basically get a 3-minute debuff when you cast Surrender to Madness. During that 3-minute debuff, you cannot be battle resed. You can't use a Soul Stone. There is no way to res you while in combat. You can be resed outside of combat, however. But after that 3 minutes is up, you can be battle resed. So I was messing around with this, and I could stay in void form for a little over a minute. However, that is without lust. That is without a haste set. And, well, the buffs are gone anyway. So it's interesting. It does do a lot more damage. However, probably not worth it for questing. Because, you know, if you're dying every pack of mobs, that would be terrible. So anyway, we are going to take a look at this spec, how I have it now. And so it kind of plays like the old style Shadow Priest before we had Shadow Orbs and before this COP playstyle. So refresh my dots, go into void form, and try to keep my insanity up as long as possible. Let's see how many stacks I can get. And I'm doing about 52k damage, which, you know, compared to what we're doing on live is not that great. But it seems like there is a ramp up time for this. Okay. And I am not using my ring, by the way. I'm just... So that was at about 65k. So, Alright, I'm gonna use my ring on this one. Or not, because I am actually in the wrong set. Okay. Let's go get out of combat. And I do have some tentacles there. They did keep some of that. Let's put that in there. Okay, I did switch my trinkets. I am using my 4-piece, which, let's see, the set reduces the cooldown on Shadow Fiend by 160 seconds and the cooldown on Mindbender by 40 seconds. And then when your Shadow Fiend or Mindbender expires, you gain premonition, increasing your crit, strike, haste, and mastery by 700, which that's kind of a huge buff from what it is on live. On live, it does increase your multi-strike, which no longer exists. Also, I will say that I do have 91% mastery in what I'm doing now. I can switch these around. Yeah, we'll do that. So that one does bring it up to 104. So this is a very mastery heavy set. Now, one thing is in the pre-patch with the ring, I think it's really gonna hurt us not popping it, or when we pop it at the beginning, which is, I feel like that's what most classes want because they do their burst right at the beginning. However, I feel like for us to get the best use out of it, we're gonna have to wait until like 30 seconds of the fight, which, you know, that's probably not gonna happen. Alright, and that is the Shadow Priest. Overall, it's alright. I like that they moved away from the COP playstyle and we're back to a dot class. I like some of the changes, however, it feels just a little bit off, and that might just be because we don't have our artifacts yet, and we don't have our artifact ability. So we'll have to see once they do some more tuning how that all works out. So thanks for watching, and be on the lookout for more videos.